Our 5th anniversary was on a Thursday. Not a big year, not a milestone, but it still meant something to me. I remember waking up that morning thinking, maybe we're finally back on track. I had even made reservations at Vincent's, the same place we went after we got engaged. I ordered a custom cake from a little Italian bakery she loved. I had it in the fridge, waiting. The candles were ready. My suit was pressed. I even wore cologne, which I hadn't done in months. She left the house in a rush. Her heels clicked down the hallway. Her phone was wedged between her shoulder and ear. She didn't even notice I'd laid out her favorite bracelet beside her keys. Yeah, I'm almost there. No, just stuck behind some idiot who can't drive. She glanced at me as she passed the kitchen. No kiss. Not even a happy anniversary. Work emergency, she mumbled. Big account. Don't wait up. And just like that, she was gone. I stared at the door long after it closed, like maybe I had imagined the whole thing. I kept telling myself it was okay, that maybe she forgot what day it was, that the stress of her new position, project lead at a mid-sized marketing firm, was just taking a toll. But that whisper in my gut, it wasn't stress. It was something else, something colder. I didn't go to Vincent's. I didn't light the candles. I sat by the window and watched the driveway until the sky turned from burnt orange to a tired gray. At 9:07 p.m., a silver car pulled into the street. Not her car, not her friend's car. This one I hadn't seen before. She stepped out laughing. He was tall, confident, the kind of man who walked like the world owed him nothing and gave him everything anyway. He didn't drop her off out front. They parked a few houses down. She was trying not to be seen. But I saw her. I stayed still as stone. The kind of stillness that only comes when your heart decides it's safer to stop moving. They stood near the car. Too close. She touched his chest. He tucked a piece of her hair behind her ear. Then they kissed. Long, slow. Familiar. She smiled. That was the worst part. She smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. Not the forced grin she gave me over coffee. Not the distracted, eyes on her phone kind of smile. This was real and not meant for me. She came home just after 11. Same clothes, slightly Messier hair. She walked into the kitchen and opened the fridge. You didn't eat? She asked casually, like she hadn't just missed our anniversary dinner for another man's arms. I didn't answer. She didn't look at me long enough to notice. Just grabbed a yogurt and disappeared into the bedroom. The bracelet I left by her keys was still sitting on the counter. I stayed by the window that whole night. Not because I thought she'd leave again, but because I didn't know what would happen if I let myself close my eyes. The next morning, she was already in the shower by the time I got up. Steam filled the bathroom. The door was half closed, and I could hear her humming. She always hummed when she was in a good mood. I made coffee in silence. I stared at her phone, charging on the kitchen island, glowing faintly with notifications. My hands twitched, but I didn't pick it up. Not yet. Over the next few days, I watched her more carefully. Not in the jealous way of some paranoid husband, no. I observed her like a man, trying to find out if the life he thought he had ever really existed. She texted more, smiled at her screen, left the room to take certain calls, started working late, a lot. The woman who used to beg me to come home early now stayed out past midnight on team projects. That Sunday, I followed her. She said she was going to a strategy brunch at her boss's house. Wore a red top she hadn't worn in years. Put on makeup. Took extra time with her hair. I waited 10 minutes, then drove after her. She didn't go to her boss's place. She met him, the same man from before. Same car. Same look of possession in his eyes. They went to a small cafe outside the city. Sat in the back corner. Leaned in close. I didn't go inside. Didn't confront them. I parked across the street and stared from the windshield, hands shaking on the steering wheel. For over an hour, I watched her play a part in a life I was never invited to. She laughed like she used to laugh with me, tilted her head, brushed her fingers across his wrist. When they left, he placed his hand on the small of her back. She didn't stop him. I went home and sat on the edge of the bed for hours. Her wedding ring lay on the nightstand. She always took it off to sleep, she claimed. It hadn't been warm in weeks. The next morning, I finally did it. I opened her phone. She'd grown careless. No lock screen, just a swipe. Her messages were clean. Too clean. No traces of him. No threads that seemed suspicious. But the calendar? That was different. Recurring meetings at odd hours. Client follow-ups at hotels. No client names. I scrolled through the locations and started mapping them in my head. Almost every work night lined up with one of those same addresses. She had created a full system for it. A hidden life, tucked inside professional terms. I closed the phone and set it down like it burned. That night, she crawled in a bed beside me and whispered, "Good night," as if the world was fine. And I whispered back, "Good night," like I wasn't dying inside. But I wasn't going to confront her yet. No yelling, no accusations, no drama. If she was playing a role, I would play one too. The next day, I called someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My cousin Alex, the one who used to do private security work. "Hey man," I said, "I need a favor. Quiet and fast." "Sure," he said. "What kind of favor?" I looked out the window at the driveway where her car had pulled in the night she lied to me. "I need to know where my wife goes and who she's really with." There was a pause. Then he answered, "I'm on it." Alex was discreet. Too discreet. He didn't ask questions. Didn't offer advice. Just texted me 2 days later with a message that said, "You want to see this?" He dropped off a USB drive inside an envelope at the mechanic shop I owned. No return address. No names. Just the device. Heavy. Cold. Full of something I both needed and dreaded. I waited until I was alone in the office that night to open it. And what I found changed everything. Photos. Videos. Dates. Locations. My wife with that man. His name was Jason. Jason Tillman. Divorced. Mid-40s. Worked in finance. Sleek. Well-dressed. Charming in the sort of way that always made me uneasy. They met at least twice a week. Hotels. Restaurants. Once even at her team retreat. They kissed like they were the only people in the world. Held hands in public. Laughed like love wasn't already taken. She wore different clothes. Different hair. Even a different laugh. I watched the recordings like I was watching an actress who had memorized every role except the one of my wife. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat there in the dark, scrolling through everything over and over, trying to figure out when it started, when I stopped being enough, when she stopped choosing me. The next morning, I made pancakes. She came downstairs with wet hair and a robe, acting like life was normal. She smiled, sat down, and said, "You're in a good mood today." I stared at her, at the woman who had kissed another man 3 days ago at a holiday in an hour away. "Just felt like being a good husband," I said. She nodded and took a bite of her pancake. She didn't even notice I hadn't touched mine. Later that day, I drove to her office building, just parked across the street, sat in my truck and watched the front entrance. After an hour, I saw her leave. Alone. I followed her again. She didn't go far, just down the street to a cafe. And then, there he was, Jason. They didn't hug, didn't kiss. It was different this time, quieter, nervous. They sat in a booth and talked. Might get twisted. This was no longer just a fling. They were making decisions, plans. I didn't need to hear what they were saying. I could see it on her face. She was weighing something, struggling with something. I watched her press her fingers to her temple, like her head hurt. Jason reached out and took her hand. She didn't pull away. She nodded. And just like that, I knew she was planning to leave me. That night, she came home late again. Tired. Quiet. She sat beside me on the couch, scrolling through her phone. I could smell his cologne on her jacket. I stared at the TV, not watching it. And I said, "Do you love me?" She didn't look up. Just said, "Of course I do. Don't be weird." But her voice shook just a little. A few days later, I got my final piece of confirmation. I stopped by her office, unannounced. The receptionist greeted me warmly. I said I was here to surprise my wife. The girl blinked. "Oh," she said. "I think she's out today." She mentioned a conference out of town. I smiled politely, thanked her, and walked out. There was no conference, and she wasn't out of town. She was in a hotel. With him. Again. I didn't even go there. Didn't need to. I had something better. At home that night, I sat across from her and said, "I think we should go on a trip. Just the two of us." She blinked. "A trip?" "Yeah," I said. "We need to reconnect. You've been so busy lately." "We both have." She hesitated, then forced a smile. "Sure," she said. "That sounds nice." But her voice cracked, and I knew I wasn't the only one feeling the walls close in. I booked the cabin for a weekend. A small place in Vermont, a few hours from home. No cell service. No neighbors. Just the woods, a lake, and two people who used to love each other more than life itself. She packed light. Too light. She didn't ask where we were going until we were halfway there. She didn't seem excited. Just cautious. That Friday night, we arrived just before sunset. I lit a fire and made us dinner. We ate in silence. She kept checking her phone, forgetting it wouldn't work out there. No texts. No Jason. Just me and her. And the lies sitting between us like a third chair at the table. After dinner, she walked out onto the porch and stared at the trees. I stayed inside, watching from behind a glass door. Her shoulders slumped. She looked tired. Not just physically, but soul-deep tired. She didn't know I had the file. She didn't know I'd watched every meeting, every kiss, every fake work excuse. And she didn't know I wasn't angry. I wasn't here to scream. I was here to understand how the woman I loved became a stranger in my own house. Later that night, we sat by the fireplace. She sipped red wine. I drank water. Then, out of nowhere, she said, "Do you ever wonder when we stop being us?" I didn't answer right away. She stared into the fire and whispered, "Sometimes I feel like I'm just existing, not living." I swallowed hard. "With me?" She looked over. Her eyes shimmered. I didn't say that, but she didn't deny it either. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and opened a drawer. Pulled out the envelope Alex had sent. I came back and placed it on a coffee table. She blinked. "What's this?" "Open it." She hesitated, then slid the photos out slowly. Her fingers trembled. Her breath caught in her throat. Each picture hit her like a brick. Her with Jason at the hotel. The cafe. His hand in hers. I watched her crumble, frame by frame. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she said, her voice shaking. "That's what everyone says," I replied. Her lip quivered. "It wasn't about love. I was lost. I didn't know who I was anymore. You could have talked to me." "I tried," she snapped. "But you were always tired, or distracted, or numb." I stared at her, jaw clenched. "So instead, you kissed him in my place." She buried her face in her hands. "I didn't want to hurt you. You did anyway." The silence between us grew thick. The fire hissed. Then, she whispered something I didn't expect. I was going to leave next month. I felt my heart tear at the edges. "Why didn't you?" I asked. She looked up, her eyes red. "Because I saw the way you looked at me when I forgot our anniversary. You didn't yell. You didn't cry. You just looked empty, like I'd already left. And now, I don't know who I am anymore," she said. "But I know who I hurt, and I don't think I can come back from that." I stood up, walked outside. The night was cold. The stars were sharp. I didn't cry. Not yet. But something deep inside me shifted. This wasn't just betrayal. This was watching a future die in slow motion. The next morning, I woke up early. She was still asleep. I wrote a note and left it on the table. "Take the car. I'll walk to the station. I need time alone. I don't hate you, but I don't know how to forgive you yet." And then I left. I walked 4 miles to the nearest station. The sun hadn't risen yet. I carried only a backpack and my thoughts, which felt heavier than anything on my shoulders. I didn't look back once. When I got home, the house was quiet. She wasn't there. She took the car like I asked, but she didn't come back for 3 days. And during those 3 days, I lived in the wreckage. Every room reminded me of what we used to be. Photos on the wall, her sweater on the chair. The bed we used to share, now cold on one side. I didn't erase her, didn't throw out her clothes or burn the memories. I just let the silence teach me how to breathe again. When she finally returned, it was on a rainy Wednesday. I heard the car pull in slowly. I didn't go out to meet her. She walked in like a stranger. Her suitcase dragged behind her, eyes swollen, clothes wrinkled, like she hadn't slept in days. She stood in the doorway, barely breathing. "I didn't know where else to go," she said. I didn't move, didn't speak. She looked around the living room like it was a museum of mistakes. "I ended it," she whispered. "With him." She nodded. He knew it was coming. I just kept delaying it, hiding in it. "And now?" I asked. She looked at me, eyes full of things I couldn't name. "Now I'm here. I don't expect anything. Not forgiveness. Not a second chance. I couldn't carry it anymore." For the first time in weeks, I looked at her and didn't feel fire in my chest. Just ash. I said nothing, just turned and walked to the guest room. The door clicked shut behind me. The next few weeks were limbo. We lived like roommates. She tried to reach me, quietly, respectfully. Left food on the counter. Folded my clothes when I forgot them in the dryer. Picked up the things I didn't say I needed. But we didn't talk about us. We didn't talk about what we were. Because we didn't know anymore. One night, I came home late from the shop. She was sitting on the couch with a photo album. It was our wedding album. She didn't look up as I walked past. Just whispered, "I wish I had protected this better." I stopped in the hallway. "I did too," I said. And for the first time, she cried in front of me. Not in guilt, not for pity, but because she finally let the weight of her choices fall on her. A week later, I found an envelope on my pillow. Inside was a letter. Her handwriting. Her truth. For pages of apologies. No excuses. No begging. Just a woman breaking open the hollow places she'd been hiding in. She wrote, "You were the safest place I ever had. And I mistook that safety for stillness. I let someone else make me feel seen because I didn't take time to see you anymore. If this is the end of us, I accept that. But please know I see you now. All of you. And I'm sorry it took losing you to understand what I had." I folded the letter, sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time since I saw her with him, I cried, not because I hated her, but because I loved her once so deeply, and now I didn't know what to do with what remained. The next morning, she was gone again. Her car missing. No note this time. Just the wedding album left on the coffee table, open to the page where I was holding her hand in the sunlight, smiling like nothing could touch us. 3 weeks passed. No calls. No messages. Nothing but silence and the letter she left behind. The house became a museum of what used to be. Her scent faded from the pillows. Her laughter stopped echoing in the kitchen. Even the dog sat by the front door some days like it was waiting too. I kept working, fixing cars, rotating tires. Tearing apart engines felt easier than facing my own. But late at night, when the noise stopped, I felt it. The ache, the wound, the unfinished story of a man who still didn't know if he should forgive the woman who shattered him. Then came the knock. It was a Sunday. I opened the door, and there she was. Rain in her hair, suitcase in one hand, a trembling envelope in the other. She didn't speak, just held out the envelope. I took it slowly. Inside was a signed divorce agreement. No lawyers, no demands, no tricks. Everything she owned, she left behind. The house, the car, the bank accounts. She had signed it all away. I looked up at her. "You're just walking away?" I asked. She shook her head. "No, I'm giving you the choice I took from you." Tears welled in her eyes. "I won't fight for anything. Not the house. Not the marriage. Not even your forgiveness. You deserve to choose freely now. And if I say it's over," I whispered. She smiled. Not happily, but like someone finally letting go of the rope. "Then I'll leave. And I'll never bother you again. I needed you to know that I loved you. I did. I just lost myself somewhere in the middle of being your wife, his fantasy, and nobody to myself." I stared at the paper. My hands were shaking. Then I said something I hadn't expected. "Don't leave yet." We sat on the porch for an hour. She talked. I listened. She didn't justify what she did. She didn't try to erase the pain. She just owned it raw, broken, and real. I asked her why him, and she said, "Because he told me I was special at a time when I didn't feel like anyone. But he never saw me. Not the way you did." I ran from the quiet because I thought noise meant love. I was wrong. I told her the truth, that I didn't know if I could trust her again, that I didn't know if healing meant staying together or walking apart. And she nodded. "I'd rather you heal without me than rot beside me," she said. We didn't reconcile that day, but we started something else. Honesty, even if it hurt. She stayed for a few days in the guest room. We talked more in those 3 days than we had in the last 3 years. No pretending, no blame. Just two people holding the pieces of something once beautiful. One morning, she made me breakfast, set it on the table. Quietly, I sat down across from her. We ate in silence. Then she said, "Can I take you somewhere?" I raised an eyebrow. "Where?" "Somewhere you can see what I've been doing since I left." We drove to a community center. Inside, a small room was filled with women. Most of them older, some in tears, others holding hands. She led a group there now, a support circle for women who'd lost themselves in love, careers, affairs, silence. She stood in front of them like someone who had bled and learned to walk again. I watched her speak. Her voice wasn't shaking now. It was steady, rooted, real, and I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. She was becoming someone again. Not just my wife, not someone's affair, herself. That night, we sat in the car, and I said, I still don't know if we'll make it. She nodded, but I want to try. I finished. She looked at me, stunned. What? Because somewhere in that broken mess, I still saw you. And I still see you now. We didn't kiss, didn't make promises. We just held hands, quietly, carefully, like people who knew what damage could do and wanted to build from the wreckage. Not a perfect ending, but maybe a true one.